Hello everybody, my name is Roho and welcome to Expozed. I'm the co-founder of Expo Collective, a platform that showcases up-and-coming artists and their talents. Behind me is a mural done by a local artist here in the city of Joliet. The artist's name is Sonryze. The theme of the mural is Black and Brown Unity Mural. So Expo Collective wanted to showcase this artist's talent and the fact that he spent so much time donating to the city of Joliet.
Oh man. See, man, you know how to dive right in, don't you?
It's only 7 questions.
Let's see. Well, I'd have to like give credit to my sister, man. Well, you know, if Sonryze is just a name, man. You know, it's something I took on when I was younger. But you know, as far as just being an artist and the interest in art came from my family and my older sister, Rosario Charo, who, when I was maybe, 5 and 6 years old, I remember her coming home from Joliet Junior College with her life drawings from life drawing class, having a model pose for her, and she had a natural talent for it, and it just caught me. The name Sonryze comes from a little bit later on when I would say maybe like, 10, 11, 12, hanging out with, by this point I'm a little bit older, but I was always into drawing. Like that was my thing since a little kid. As soon as I was able to like find like-minded people that were kind of into the same thing, which was an older cousin of mine, they kind of introduced me into the graffiti world. And, to me, it was kind of just all one thing. Like as a little kid, I didn't really see a separation between like, graffiti and street art and, the life drawings that my sister was bringing home. To me, it all was fascinating. So my cousin, Ramon, who was a DJ in the late 80s here in Joliet, introduced me to his buddy, Chucho. Again, I was like about 11, 12 years old, and these brothers were like, maybe like 16, 17 or something. I don't know why they let like a little punk like come and hang out, but that's legit what it was, man. I was the young buck in the crew, and they let me hang out, and it was like just a kind of a natural camaraderie that we had with each other, to sit around and sketch and compare drawings and work on each other's lettering styles and character styles and all that stuff we developed just hanging out, man, just on the block, going to each other's houses. The one thing about Ramon was that he always was an intelligent brother. He was always reading something, introducing you to something, and he's the one that pushed me into like learning about my culture. So the name Sonryze comes from, wanting to learn about your culture and like kind of like, taking it upon yourself to go like digging into the library, Joliet Public Library, or, back then I was in Gompers, I'd go to, library at school and just look for like books on Chicano history and things of that nature, and just read and just learn. It was always like intertwined, the whole thing, with graffiti, muralism, history. Like all those things to me were always like part of the same thing. So it's like, as we were learning, we were, not only learning about like, the subway riders of like New York, in the same breath we're learning about like Diego Rivera and Siqueiros and those guys in other books and stuff. So it was all about knowledge. Back then, hip hop culture was about like self-awareness and, knowledge of self and things of that nature. So, we kind of took it from the hip hop perspective, but, whereas hip hop was very pro-black back then, we just took that same energy and applied it to being Mexican, being native, being, brown people, you know what I'm saying? So the Sonryze comes from the stories of, sun worship and things of that nature that our people came from, you know what I'm saying, when it comes to That's what Sonryze is to me. It's kind of like that discovery of yourself, and like, you know, it's like kind of like in the hip hop sense, it's like bragging, like exalting yourself, but at the same time, because you flip with the words, you're playing with wording, you're humbling yourself in the same breath as you're like, you know, I'm the sun, but I'm the sun. You know what I'm saying? Like the play on words, basically, like kind of yin and yang, where you're being your higher self, but at the same time you're humbling yourself to the past and to your ancestors and to things of that nature. So it's a constant reflection of being greater and trying to be like your greatness, your full self, and at the same time remaining, you know, a son, remaining a student, remaining a vessel for learning and taking in all this stuff. You know, as I mentioned before, my cousin Ramon, he's a major influence on me, and like I said, he, you know, thank God that it was this way, but he was always an intelligent brother, and he always kind of made that cultural connection with everything that we were doing, you know, and like I said, hip hop was a strong influence on us. And back then, like, to be hip hop, it ain't like now where it's like, you know, you could just say I'm hip hop, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. You know, and rock a certain fashion or say a certain thing or whatever trend of the moment. Like back in the days, you really had to embody it. So it's like everybody who was down back then, like we all had our discipline. So like whatever you identified as, you know, if you were a graffiti writer, then, you know, you had to like be dope at graffiti, but then ultimately that skill that made you good at that would spill into something else. So it's like everybody that was quote unquote hip hop, you know, you would either like, you know, if you were good with words, you were an MC, but then, you know, you might, you know, just naturally become a DJ because you're into like the music already, the rhythm. So it was just kind of always, to me, intertwined, and you couldn't really separate it. Like with me, I took on like the whole thing, like all the elements. To me, it was like you had to like be dope at everything, and like it just was a part of it. So the music was just kind of natural. It reflects the other, because like music is made up of all these other things, especially hip hop. You know, it's not just rap, it's not just beats. Like it comes from, you know, the tradition of soul music and, you know, blacks and Latins in New York and in the Bronx, and there's all these things that pour into it that, you know, when you study it, you gotta recognize like all the elements that make it what it is. So, you know, to me, if you practice an art, it's kind of like sound and sight can be almost like interchangeable. If you understand like color and rhythm and sounds and movements, and there's things that are interchangeable, that you could describe something that's a painting that's obviously it's two-dimensional, it's a flat surface, but you can describe it in terms of like, you know, movement or, you know, warmth. Like you give it these elements that aren't, you know, it's like it's alive or something, you know what I'm saying? And that's the same way with music, where, you know, you can describe music in ways that are like meant for something that you see, but it's like something you hear, you know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like, it's interchangeable. So it's like if you make music and if you make art, then it's like, you know, it's just a different medium. So you can, you know, choose to express yourself through, you know, colors and, you know, brush strokes and things of that nature. But that same energy could go into like, you know, a beat or something, you know what I'm saying? Or like, I don't know, you know, like I always think in my head when I think about painting canvases, because canvases are like a drum, like it's like the skin is stretched over the thing. So it's like when you're, you know, hitting them brushes to the canvas, like you're making, it's like you're making beats, you know what I'm saying? You're pounding the stretched skin over the drum, and it's all interchangeable. Like when artist is in full swing, and you hear the cans rattling and the paint smacking the surface and everything. It's all very musical. So, to me, it's like, it's all the same thing. Born and raised, bro. My family came here in the mid-'70s. I'm the youngest of 8. And basically all my older siblings were born in Mexico, in Villa Juarez. And then I have the second to youngest is my sister, who was born like halfway in Texas. And then once we got here, I was born here. And I've been here all my life, man. I went to public schools here, graduated from Joliet Central, grew up on the east side. This town raised me, bro, and it's very much a part of who I am. When like cemented the Jolietness in me, because like I'm going to downtown to like apparently like a whole different world, but then come 3 p.m., 4 p.m. I gotta make that next metro back to the crib. So I'm walking through downtown Chicago, marveling at like the architecture and meeting with friends for lunch and seeing kids from other schools and everything within like a 5-6 block radius. But then, I got to get to the crib and, take that walk from, the metro to up Collins, up Jackson to Ohio, back to the crib and come home. That was my life, what I'm saying? So, so Joliet, it's where I'm from, man. I've lived in Chicago. I've traveled to other cities. Been to Mexico, been to Jamaica, and it's like, everywhere you go, you take a little bit of like where you're from, and Joliet is, it gets a bad rap, but it's a very unique place. It's an old school town. It's not a suburb, it's an old school blue collar, working class town. And in a sense, it's like a microcosm of the world. You get all walks of life here. There's no culture unless you're the one doing it. But everything else, like, from crime to, gangs and drugs and things that people in the suburbs, gotta like view through a, movie screen or something like we had that, And Joliet in the 80s was crazy, man. And it's a different place now, but it's still very much, the same. And the older you get and the more you travel and meet different people, different walks of life, you realize like how much like your home is a part of like just how you roll. Well, I'm a muralist, so I'm always like looking for opportunities to paint. It was kind of like a culmination of things. I had been working the last few years mostly on commission projects that were like indoors and for like businesses and stuff. So even though I was working as an artist, a lot of my stuff was like not for public consumption. It was like for a private, business. So it's like you had to like go to the place and go to the store, or, and it's like I was working, but like there was an element to it that was missing. It was like a longing to do something more community oriented. And that was kind of just building up inside of me, of the timing being right, with so much going on with all the injustices in the world and all the uprisings around the country. It just felt like Joliet needed to kind of like put their foot down and make their presence known in the scheme of all of this, and I just felt like Joliet hadn't done that yet and it needed something. I didn't know what, but I felt like when the protests broke out, it was a lot going on, and as an artist, it's like you start to digest all these things, and one way or another, you take what's going on in the world around you, and it's gonna come out like however you channel it or whatever. But just with all this going on, I felt like Joliet was going through a kind of awakening where we've always kind of been in our own bubble out here. And a lot of times we almost are like behind on things, so to speak. I feel like culturally and the level of activism and the level of people taking charge. I felt like Joliet was kind of like new to it, like a baby. And there was a lot going on. There was almost an immediate like counter reaction to it. I don't know if that makes sense, but I felt like with people that were organizing marches and protests and bringing that to Joliet, I felt like there was almost an immediate like backlash within the city of people like not wanting any of that, like not wanting their perfect little like vision of this town disturbed at all. And like that really bothered me because, I've lived here all my life, and I felt like, there is definitely a lot of, injustice, a lot of segregation, but then there's like a lot of unspoken unity and like camaraderie within the people in the city. And, especially being from the East Side and growing up around Black and brown people, we get a bad rap in this town, and there aren't enough visual representations of the fact that we do live as neighbors, and we are way more a loving people than that. And like, even though Joliet, I wouldn't describe as say like necessarily like a political town like that. I felt like it was an opportunity for us to engage in that conversation by simply just exposing ourselves to the world and the way we live here. And we do live in unity, I feel like. Most of the stuff that I've dedicated myself to, as far as like even DJing and doing events like that, it's always with that Black, brown, love, unity vibe in mind, without it even being like not because it's a trend or not because it's the thing to do. That's just like where I come from, you know what I'm saying? Like being someone that feels that they're a part of hip hop culture, you can't really separate the blackness from it, you know what I'm saying? Like if you ride for hip hop, you ride for Black culture, you know what I'm saying? There's no way around it, you know what I'm saying? So I just felt like it was a natural progression and a natural thing to just make happen. I think like at the time, the universe kind of just said, hey, like put everything in place and made it like the right time for it. I almost feel like the mural painted itself. I was just kind of like there, like I just kind of facilitated it, but it ain't me. It's something bigger than me, and it's something that speaks like not just from me, but like it's from somewhere else, man. I can't explain it, but it was needed, and I'm just happy that I was a part of it. That basically was upon the request of the store owner and manager, but it was my honor to do it. There are a lot of Latino military families that I feel don't get the respect they deserve in this country. It's something that goes beyond like, just being patriotic and like, wanting to fight for this country or for this government. When we talk about the military and things of that nature, there's a lot of things that go into that. And one thing that a lot of people don't talk about is the way, the military recruits and the way they target people that are more or less disenfranchised. They go into the black neighborhoods, they go into the Latino neighborhoods, into inner cities, into poor places, and they do their recruiting. These soldiers and these families that contribute so much to this country are usually swept under the rug when people talk about, like I mentioned, patriotism and nationalism and especially now, people don't realize that not only is the fabric of this country made of all these different backgrounds, but also very much so the military is a microcosm of that. To me, it's important to pay tribute to these fallen soldiers because they sacrificed their lives, but they are never going to get the proper, honorable farewell that, a soldier who died in battle might get, or something, where they get their 21 gun salute and their folded flag and things of that nature. As far as to my knowledge, these people who are disappearing, they don't get that. They don't get that honor. And to me, it's important to honor them as the warriors that they are. You know what I'm saying? Like give them their props and to do it in this way through mural painting and things of that nature. That's how we do. You know what I'm saying? As a culture, that's how we embrace our own and make it felt to where the world knows how we feel. You know what I mean? So it's important, man. It's important because they sacrificed themselves basically, and to me, it's a deeper pride and a deeper love than just being patriotic. You know what I'm saying? Just saying, oh, for the flag or for whatever. These people don't fight for a flag. You know what I'm saying? For a piece of cloth. They fight for you and me, for families, for human beings. You know what I'm saying? So it's just only right that we give them a human farewell. You know what I'm saying? A human send-off, the proper way. And they should be honored and they should be remembered as the beautiful individuals that they were. You know what I mean? And in all their glory. So to be able to do that through a mural is it's an honor to me to be able to do that. But I think it's something that needs to be done. And Vanessa is just one. Unfortunately, she's just one of many. And if I feel like if we don't pay them their proper due, then who else is gonna? So I painted this mural with the desire to kind of inspire that sense of awe that a child might have, but for a grown person or for anybody really to tap into their inner child, so to speak. One of the things that I thought about as I was painting this mural was being young and running to they used to have the neighborhood block parties, the kermés back in the day, either at the church. I remember being a kid and whenever the kermés was going on, it's okay, yeah, it's going on or whatever, they're selling food, playing music. But I would always be conscious of when the breakdancers would perform. I didn't want to miss that shit, run into the kermés to see the b-boys perform. And that was just a lingering thought as I painted this mural, that what do kids have now that they would want to run to and oh, I can't miss the blah 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 or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I felt like there wasn't anything. So I wanted this mural to be that, to be that sense of wonder and that sense of just something kind of magical that a little kid could get excited about and sort of like escape. You know what I'm saying? So the mural is almost like a dreamscape of like a kid opening up a book and discovering this whole universe inside this book, but also like discovering himself in that same book, to where you read about, you know, like these mysterious structures that were built thousands of years ago, but you know that like that was your ancestors that built it, but then also that, you know, halfway across the world in some other remote like corner of the world, there was like similar things happening, and you know, you're a part of that too. You're a part of that legacy too. So, you know, the mural is basically like a peek into like a kid's imagination and the whole like universe that could be inside that imagination. You know what I mean? So when you're standing there looking at the mural, you're standing within a landscape that doesn't exist, because it's, you know, it exists in some kid's head. So like, you know, you have the Mexican pyramid structure that's like immediately preceded by the outline of the Egyptian structure, but they're sitting within the same space, you know what I'm saying? And then the kid is like transfixed in between that. So it's like the kid is making these connections of like these ancient cultures that like didn't leave any books, didn't leave anything to say like, hey, this is us or this is you, but their structures are still there, you know what I'm saying? So it's like the structure, the space itself speaks to you, because they're, you know, all the books were burned, so we can't learn that way. So we got to learn like just through the magic of it, like just discovering it and like letting our imaginations run wild with it, you know what I'm saying? It's a portrait of Sitting Bull, and that's just, I don't know, I've got a weird connection with Sitting Bull. I just, to me, he's just so majestic. I used to run a little flea market stand, and there was a guy in that flea market that used to sell native trinkets. And one day I wandered into his shop, and he had a little box. I didn't have a lot of money on me, but he had a box of 99-cent postcards. And that's like the only thing I could afford. So I'm like digging in this little box of postcards. And there was two that I picked out. One was Sitting Bull, and one was Portrait of Geronimo. And for some reason, like old black and white photographs of native like chiefs and stuff, like they have this weird like magic to them. I can't explain it. Like, and I think it has to do with like the whole process of like photography and the fact that a lot of them didn't want to be taken like a photograph of or whatever. They would think like it took a part of your soul. Like I think there's some truth to that. So like when you're looking at that photo, like that's a piece of dude's soul. Like and I don't know, man. The Sitting Bull one in particular, I bought that postcard, and I ended up like doing like a canvas of that same photo. And then when I imagined doing this mural, I just automatically pictured like that same portrait kind of overlooking. And you know, it's just it's a nod to America's past, being that we had the African representation, we had the ancient Mexico representation, which is, you know, the neighborhood, the black and the brown people. But then, you know, the native presence had to be accounted for. So, you know, that's just giving respects and due to the ancestors of this land where we all live and build. And, you know, we all have a connection to that. I think it's, you know, especially as artists, you know, part of our duty to shine light on that heritage. I don't know. I just kind of go, you know, from one project to the next, and then, you know, hopefully look back and at some point there's a body of work. But yeah, I just kind of like stay low and keep firing, man. This project was something that I've been wanting to do for a long time as far as the scale of it. So it's my first time painting this size by myself, and I enjoyed it. So I would like to kind of keep that momentum up and keep kind of like telling this story, but you know, find different canvases, different buildings, you know, and talk to different you know, different business owners and landlords and stuff, and kind of like pick at their brain and see what stories are left to tell, you know. And with this particular project, I definitely gotta big up my wife Yolanda, and our buddy Alex, who have been kind of like there in my corner this whole time. And you know, when it was just kind of an idea and just kind of a possibility, like, you know, they were very supportive, and you know, when a lot of other people weren't necessarily so supportive, or when, you know, all I was hearing was like crickets, you know, they were like, nah, you know, they're like, let's do this. So